Murloc, the alien child, screamed in fear as his family's broken-down spaceship crashed around them. His father was badly hurt and bleeding out, and the life support was failing. Everyone turned a blind eye except for a faraway species called humans. The cruel Krulthech soldiers, which looked like insects, had blown up Murloc's homeworld, destroying towns and killing civilians. Murloc, his parents Zoran and Irina, and I barely made it out of the burning remains alive in a small shuttle. Zoran was hit in the stomach by shrapnel though. As they ran out of air, they slid hopelessly through space, Zoran's blood collecting on the floor. They called for help, but no one answered until a Krulthech warship picked up their signal. The insectoids were ready to finish. Over the phone, Irina begged for help. "Please help us." It didn't matter to the close alien ships though. There was the peaceful Zlin, the greedy Orlic, and the haughty Binar. They all turned off their communications and warped off. The call was only answered by a strange new species calling itself human. The human ship was 30 minutes away, small and lightly armed. As soon as the Krulthech fired, the Zorgaction shuttle's shields broke. They only had 5 minutes to live. They didn't know if the humans would get there in time or if these strange beings would risk their lives to help people from a different species. Murloc and his family could only pray. The Krulthech warship got closer, and its guns were locked on the Zorgaction shuttle, which was badly damaged. He huddled up against his mother and cried as he watched his father have a hard time breathing. The purple blood pool under Zoran was getting bigger every second. All of a sudden, a chorus of new voices came through the communications. Several ships from different species across the galaxy responded to their call for help and formed a small fleet. A strong voice said, "This is the Galactic Council fleet. We are taking a look at the problem." Irina's eyes showed a hint of hope. She leaned forward and tightly held Murloc. She was dying to hear more. During the long pause, there was only the hiss of static. Then a sad voice spoke again. "Even though the Zorgaction family is in great danger, we can't risk going head-to-head with the Krulthech. Their army is way too strong." It broke Murdak's heart. He saw his mother's hope leave her face as he looked up at her. "We are very sorry for your loss and want to help you through this difficult time." Someone else spoke up, and their voice sounded almost bored. "Don't worry, we will take formal action against the Krulthech for this horrible crime." Irina whispered diplomatic action, but her voice was shaking with anger and hopelessness. "My husband is going to die. My kid is scared to death. We need help right now." But no one answered her calls. The council ship stood back, keeping a safe distance from the Krulthech battleship that was coming toward them. Murloc pressed his face against the cold window and watched as the insectoid ship got bigger. The glow of its weapons was getting stronger, getting ready to deal the finishing blow. He whimpered "Mama," and buried his face in her shoulder. "I feel scared." She held him close while her body shook with fear and sadness. "I understand, child." Just when it looked like there was no more hope, a new voice came through the radio. It was strong and deep, and the accent was strange. Murloc had never heard it before. The voice said, "This is Captain Marcus Reynolds of the Earth Alliance ship Resolve. We are on our way to where you are, and we'll get there in about 15 minutes. Please hold on, Zorgaction shuttle. There will be help soon." When Irina heard what the human leader said, her heart was beating fast. Even though the Krulthech battleship was getting closer, she felt a spark of hope. She held Murloc tight and whispered comforting words to her scared child. Captain Reynolds stood tall on the bridge of the Resolve and looked at the view screen. The Krulthech ship took up most of the show space. Its sharp hull was packed full of weapons. He told Helm to set an intercept course, and his voice was steady and cool. "Tactically get ready to fight the other ship. We should give that Zorgaction shuttle a chance." His team jumped into action, swiping their fingers quickly across the consoles as he told them what to do. As the Resolve sped toward the Krulthech warship, its engines burned brightly as it moved forward. When the insectoid ship fired, it sent beams of intense energy at the human ship, but the determination was already strong. The attack was mostly blocked by its advanced shields, which shone with a bright blue light as they radiated the destructive energy away. Captain Reynolds barked, "Return fire. Go after their weapon systems." The weapons on the Resolve came to life and fired a barrage of rockets and beam weapons at the Krulthech ship. The insectoids had never seen weapons like those made by humans before. They were sleek, powerful, and led by high-tech systems that knew exactly where to aim. As the human guns hit their targets, explosions spread across the Krulthak's hull. The insectoid ship shook, and the attack made its shield stretch. Murloc was amazed as the human ship danced around the Krulthak warship and dodged its strikes with grace that belied its size. He was in the Zorg action shuttle. It looked like the Resolve knew exactly what the insectoid ship was going to do next, and was always one step ahead of it. The Zorg action shuttle's life support system broke down and died while the fight was going on. The temperature dropped and the air became thin and musty. Murloc shivered, and the cold air made his breath fog up. Arena felt her heart break as she looked down at Zoran, and saw that his eyes were losing their light. His breaths were short gasps, and his purple blood was pooling on the floor. She whispered, "Hold on, my love," as tears ran down her face. "Please wait a little longer." On the Resolve's bridge, Captain Reynolds saw the vital signs of the Zorg action ship flicker and fade. He knew time was running out. He told them to get ready for emergency transfer, and his voice was tight with stress. "Find the live signs of the Zorg actions and beam them straight to the medical bay." His crew paused for a moment, their shocked eyes going wide. Bringing unknown aliens on board was a risky move that could put the ship in danger in ways that were not planned for. But Captain Reynolds wouldn't give up. He made it clear that they would not be killed out there. "Get going." Murdoch, Arena, and Zoran left their broken-down ship and reappeared on the Resolve in a shimmering haze of light. They fell to the floor of the medical bay and were shaking and gasping for air. The medical team made quick, accurate moves as they jumped into action. They put Zoran on a bio-bed and started using their high-tech devices to look at his injuries. As Murloc took in his strange surroundings, he held on to his mother's hand and looked around with wide, scared eyes. The human ship was different from anything he had seen before. It had smooth lines, shiny metal, and technology that, to his young mind, seemed almost magical. But Murdoch couldn't help but feel a little hope, even though he was scared. People had put their lives at risk to save his family when no one else would. They were brave and caring in a way he had never seen before. Zoran was being stabilized by the medical team as Captain Reynolds walked into the room. He bent down and looked down at Murdoch and Arena. The kindness and love in his eyes went beyond species and language. He said in a soft voice, "You're safe now. We'll help your family in any way we can." Thoughts of hope for the future came to Murloc for the first time since the Krulthak attacked their homeworld. The human medical bay was very busy as the nurses and doctors worked hard to save Zoran's life. As they rushed to put pressure on the huge cut in his abdomen, their hands were hard to make out. Murloc was amazed as they used strange machines that gave off beams of light and buzzed with power. Zoran was lying on the ground when a tall man with kind eyes leaned over and said, "Stay with us, Zoran. Now you're in good hands." Even though Murloc couldn't understand the words, the tone made him feel better. As his mother sobbed softly, he held on to her hand and looked at her dead husband. People who were doctors worked for what seemed like hours, with their brows furrowed in focus. Murloc had never seen anything like what they were doing before, not even in the most advanced hospitals on his home world. The tall doctor finally took a step back and wiped his forehead. His voice was low as he spoke to Arena. "He is now calm. The damage to his innards has been fixed, and the bleeding has stopped. He will need some time to get better, but he will be fine." She let out a happy sob and pulled Murloc close. She said, "Thank you," in a shaking voice. "Thanks a lot." The doctor gave her a friendly smile and put his hand on her shoulder. "Thank you, we're happy to have been of service." While the doctors kept an eye on Zoran's situation, Captain Reynolds went into the medical bay. He had a kind face and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. He was tall and had broad shoulders. He walked up to Arena and Murloc and got down on his knees so that he was level with the young Zorg action. A soft voice said, "Hello, Murdoch. I'm Reynolds, Captain. Please know that you and your family are safe now. You may stay on our ship for as long as you want." Murdoch was amazed as he looked up at the captain. "What made you help us?" His voice was shaky and small as he asked. "Not anyone else?" Captain Reynolds smiled and put his hand on Murdoch's shoulder. He said, "Because that's what we do. People have a saying, 'Don't leave anyone behind.' We will never leave people who are in need, no matter who they are or where they are from." He could feel tears coming to his eyes. He had never seen someone so kind and generous, and especially not from a species he had never heard of. he said with a shaking voice. "But you could have been hurt. The Krulthak are really strong. Why would you put your lives at risk for us?" With a serious face, Captain Reynolds looked at Murloc. He was firm. "Because it's the right thing to do. People think that all lives are valuable, no matter what kind of animal they are. When we had the power to help, we couldn't just watch innocent people suffer." Murdoch felt a rush of strong emotions. He had always been told that the space was a harsh place where only strong people could it. But these people were putting their lives at risk to help a family they had never met. He said, "Thank you," in a heavy voice as tears filled his eyes. "You saved us. Thank you." Captain Reynolds smiled and gave Murloc a soft hug. He said in a soft voice, "Thank you, little one. We'll do everything we can to help you and your family find a new place to live." As Murloc held on to the captain, he felt happiness and hope like he had never felt before. People from Earth had shown him that there were still good people in the galaxy who would do the right thing no matter what. That was the first time since the Krulthach attack that Murloc let himself think that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. As he spoke to the Galactic Council, Captain Reynolds stood tall on the bridge of the Resolve and looked at the view screen. The Zorgaction family, who were safe in the medical bay of the ship, was on his mind as he got ready to talk to the council members who had left them when they needed help. He began, "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," and his voice was strong and steady. "I'm not here today to speak for all people. I'm here as a conscious being who thinks all life has value on its own." The council members moved around uncomfortably in their seats, trying to avoid the captain's sharp gaze. Their holographic pictures flickered a little. When the Zorgaction family ran out of food and water and called for help, no one answered. Reynolds went on, and his words broke through the tension. They were scared and left to die alone as the Krulthach battleship came down on them. He took a moment to let what he said sink in. "Does the Galaxy Council stand for this? Is this what we want to leave behind?" There were a lot of whispers and murmurs in the council room. Some members turned their heads away in shame, while others snarled at the captain's harsh tone. One council member spoke up, his voice shaking a little. "We had no choice. The Krulthach have too much power. We couldn't risk getting into a fight." Reynolds looked at the council member with a hard gaze. He said it over and over, his voice rising with each word. "No choice. You can always make a choice. You decided to put your own safety ahead of the lives of innocent people. You picked being afraid over caring." The member of the council jerked, and as he sank back into his seat, his holographic picture flickered. Reynolds continued with a passionate voice. "The goal of this council is to protect and support all sentient life, no matter what species it is or where it comes from. What's the point of our life if we can't stick to that basic rule?" The meeting chamber fell silent. Some people looked down at their hands, and others looked at each other with unease. Reynolds said, his voice getting a little softer, "I beg you, this event should serve as a wake-up call. Let's once again stand by the ideals that brought us together in the first place. Let's always stand up for what's right, even when things get tough." Some people on the council started to nod their heads slowly and hesitantly. Some even spoke up as if they had a new sense of purpose in their words. One member, her voice shaking with emotion, said, "Captain Reynolds is right. We're not sure where we are anymore. We need to do better." Others in the group spoke up. "I promise to do more to protect vulnerable groups," and his voice was full of determination. "People shouldn't have to die while we do nothing." Before the council members spoke, Reynolds felt a rush of hope and pride in his heart. He knew that this was just the start and that there was still a lot of work to be done, but he gave himself a moment of pleasure, knowing that he had helped guide the Galactic Council back to the right road. In the medical bay, Murloc and his family watched the events on a view screen. They were thankful and admired the human captain for putting everything at risk to save them. Murdoch whispered, "He's a hero." His eyes were wide with amazement. "A real hero." Irina nodded, and as she held her son close, tears ran down her face. She spoke softly, "We owe him our lives, and we will spend the rest of our days working to bring our two groups of people together." When the determination kept going through the stars, Murdoch knew that his life would never be the same again. Being kind and brave had shown him their strength, and he promised to remember those lessons for the rest of his life. Even though the path ahead would be long and full of problems, Murdoch was sure he would face them with the same bravery and determination as Captain Reynolds. He had seen the best in people, and knew that by working together, they could make the future better for everyone in the galaxy. The story is now over. Please like and subscribe to our station if you like this story and want to help us out, and I will heart every reply that says 88%. Thanks for your time.